Okay, Kaya, Wanju, hello and welcome everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and to the parents who've been here for many, many thousands of years. We've got a really strong, beautiful lineage of parents working hard right where we all stand. So I'd like to do all of this in the spirit of reconciliation. The second thing I'd like to do is thank you so much for being here. So for those of you who've carved out this time on the day, I know that it kind of requires moving mountains, so thank you so much. Or for those listening in later, I really appreciate everything it takes for you to be listening in. My name's Belinda Smith. I am a parenting facilitator with Miralinga Parenting Service. We work in the Southwest Metro region of Perth as the funded parenting service. So I feel really fortunate to get to work with parents in this way, and Miralinga have actually been working in Perth for over 100 years now, supporting families and children. Today's workshop, which is just a quick 30 minutes, and the idea is that makes it a little bit more accessible to busy parents to get some of these ideas going in, is based on the ideas from hand-in-hand parenting, which is also called Parenting by Connection in Australia. So welcome everyone. Just move on to the key messages for today. First of all, it's helpful for us to think about for this webinar on helping our child listen and cooperate. Why don't they do that? So we'll have a brief look at what is stopping them from listening and cooperating, because if you're like me, you're probably being very reasonable and asking them some very reasonable things to do, and they will not listen and they will not cooperate. So I get that. Number two is probably more important in some ways. What do they need to help them listen and cooperate? Because although it doesn't always feel like it, they want things to go well too, and they do want to be part of the team. They want things to go smoothly and to feel like they're connected to you. So we'll go through a whole series of supportive ideas there, and they are connect before you correct, bringing the limit, reach, don't teach, fill their cups, the power of listening lovingly, and play as a parenting superpower. So we'll go through each of those, and I'll actually give you a handout after this with all of this information on it, so that you've got something you can stick on the fridge just to remind you of some of the ideas we cover today. And lastly, a really important piece of the puzzle is us. So 50% of that interaction is what we're bringing into that moment. So we need to think about our needs as well. So the last point is, what do parents need? And we'll look at that. Firstly, why don't children listen and cooperate? Wouldn't it be nice if they just, if they were just, compliant and did as we asked? The first thing to note is child developmental norms are at play here. Sometimes we really have expectations that are beyond what they're able to bring. And it's very interesting to note that research has shown that we often have low expectations for babies. So we really don't understand that babies come to the world with quite a lot of natural intelligence, particularly emotional intelligence, and we can underestimate that. But actually we overestimate what our toddlers can understand and do. We're really kind of expecting them to behave in ways that they're just simply not capable of. So those developmental norms are a handy thing to check out. And that's something, if you're interested in, I can certainly forward you to some great resources. A good one is the Raising Children Network. So it's raisingchildren.au, I think. I will include that in the email. And that can give you some really useful information. Another thing that helps our children sometimes is just a little bit more information. So they don't have the same understanding that we as grown-ups do. So if we can just share a bit more information, that can help them listen and cooperate. Also, their response to stress can mean that they're unable to really listen well or to cooperate. So when things are a bit stressful, as you'd know yourself, when you're feeling a bit under the pump, it's difficult to respond well. Feeling disconnected from us, feeling a bit isolated and alone can mean that it's hard for them to tap into their natural goodness. And finally, a physiological need to recover from emotional challenges. And what I mean by that is that hand-in-hand parenting takes the view that tantrums are actually really useful. And in the same way that we often have this build-up of tension and stress, Our children do too, and that can make it really difficult for them to be flexible and thinking well, and it can mean that their behaviour can be pretty nutty. So let's have a look at what they actually need to help them. Connect before you correct, and that's a really nice little thing to keep in mind. Connection is actually the fuel that drives all of our brains and bodies. We are set up to connect from birth, or from pre-birth actually, but from the moment a baby is born, you can really see that they're looking for that beautiful connection with their primary caregivers, and that's the thing that builds their intelligence. So every time you are responding warmly, every time you do those beautiful serve and return interactions, like a game of tennis, the baby goos and you go, oh yes, sweetheart, and they goo some more and you go, good, 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 good. That's building their brains. That's, you know, the foundation of all their future learning and development. It's really important work. So Dan Siegel is a neuroscientist who works in the parenting sphere, who offers this hand model of the brain. So if you make a fist with your hand, the wrist part, the base of it, is sometimes called our reptilian brain. It's the part of the brain that's really deals with life processes like breathing, and built in around it is this incredibly elegant part of the brain, the limbic system. That's the part of the brain that's looking for safety, looking to determine whether we're safe. If and only if we can detect that sense of safety, then the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain, can come online and we can access our executive function. So once we feel safe, we have access to an integrated brain that can really operate with reasoning, logic, impulse control, short-term memory, all the beautiful things we love for our kids to show. But the minute they're not feeling safe, it doesn't mean they aren't safe, but if they're not feeling it, they flip their lids and they lose access to that thinking part. And it's worth noting, in fact, that at least until they're 4, and I would argue really until they're about 7, they are creatures of feeling. They don't think, then act. They feel, then act. So what we suggest is that you connect before you correct. You move in close, offer some real warmth, like, oh, hi, sweetheart. Oh, what are you doing on the iPad? Show me. So you connect in first, and then, and only then, do you say, wow, that was so cool. You know, it's nearly time to hop off. Can I watch you just for this last minute? And then we're going to go and do something else fun together. That connection before you correct is going to get much better results than shouting from the other end of the room, it's time to get off the iPad. So give it a try and see if you have some better results. My experience is that it's a really reliable way to get that cooperation, is to connect in before you correct. Children also need us to bring the limit. As I said, young children feel, then act. Their prefrontal cortex is really still under construction, and they don't have the brain connections that we as grown-ups do, and they simply don't have the brain architecture to manipulate parents. Their brains are not fully developed until the mid to late 20s, and the number keeps kind of going up. So we really, if we bring an understanding that our child, when they're not listening and they're not cooperating, they're not doing it on purpose. They're not being a problem, they're having a problem. And if we can bring that understanding, we can move in close to them and bring that limit rather than setting it from the other side of the room, and have really high expectations. Yeah, it's time to put your shoes on. And your child may at that point say, no, I can't do it. And you can just warmly be there setting that limit, saying, I think you can do it. I'm going to be here with you. I know it's hard. That's a very different energy and experience for your child, but that high expectations combined with warmth is a really powerful and proven way to get positive results for your child's growth and development. Another thing that can really help is reaching, not teaching. So this brain model, if you fold your fist up again, if you think normally we're teaching that frontal lobe, we're reasoning with our child and trying to explain things to them, but actually what we need to do is reach for the limbic system, reach in for the part of the brain that's searching for safety, because in actual fact, verbal communication, the words that we use, There's a number of different studies around this, but the one that I go by says it's 7%. 7% of our communication is the words we use. 43%, and they're all around about these numbers, 43% is the tone of voice that we're using, and about 50% is our body language. So 93% of our communication is nonverbal. So when we're lecturing our child, as I do, as all parents do, it's not our fault. We are exhausted, overwhelmed. We need to get them out the door. But the reality is that that's really not going to work. So when I'm bringing a stressed face saying, come on, we need to get ready. It's time to go out the door. Quick, put your shoes on. They aren't really hearing the words. They're receiving the message from that 93% of our body language and our tone of voice. If instead we can bring a limit and reach for that limbic system, oh, come here, you. Oh, gorgeous boy, I think I need to give you 1,000 kisses. Now it's time to put those shoes on. Can you put them on? Can you even do the shoelaces? Awesome. That's amazing. So we're sending a very different message with that tone. The part of the brain that can be reasonable really isn't online when they're flipping their lids, when they're not feeling safe, when they're not listening, they're not cooperating, but it's not a conscious choice. So what we need to remember at that point is, particularly if, like me, you've got a teen in the house, much of our relationship is the limits that we set. So we're setting limits all day. How we do that really matters. If we can do that with warmth, humour and connection, we're actually building our relationship while we set limits. How amazing is that? So hand-in-hand parenting suggests that we bring those limits early. So the first sign of disconnect or trouble, and often, and close and warm. And in that way, we're building our relationship and actually building their intelligence. So a key tool that hand-in-hand parenting teaches is special time. Special time is a beautiful way to fill our children's cup and to help their brains operate really well. It's a preventative tool, but it's also something we can use in the moment. What we do is we schedule a time with our child. So tomorrow I'm going to be with you for 10 minutes before we go out the door to daycare. We name it. I really want to do this fun thing with you. Should we call it special time? Should we call it mummy and me time? What would you like to call it? And they get to name it. And that's powerful because in future, then they can really ask for it when they need it. An important part of this is that we time it. As parents, I'm sure you are doing lots of play with your children, and this timing it, using a timer, really sets it apart, because then our child knows they've got us 110%. We don't answer the door. We don't have a cup of tea. We don't pick up the laundry off the floor. We just bring 100% delighted, warm attention to everything that they offer to us. I want to play, Barbies. Awesome. I want to go outside in the rain and look for bugs. Fantastic. Whatever it is that they want to do, we bring our delight. And it's important to note that doing this can bring up some feelings for them in the same way that for us, if we meet an old friend and they look us in the eye and they say, how are you? It's so good to see you. How are you doing? Sometimes at that point, we might have a little meltdown and say, actually, it's been really hard. And it's the same thing for our children, that when we offer 100% attention, it might be an opportunity for them to say, I'm not feeling so good. It's been hard at school. I miss you. And my friend's been a bit mean to me. And I lost my favorite toy. They may not tell us that in their words. They may just need a good cry. So allowing time for those feelings can be a really powerful way to build your relationship. And it also frees up their nervous system and helps them be able to listen and cooperate more in the future. So that's really time well spent. So special time we see as like a connection vitamin. If it's something you can schedule in at least once a week, maybe every day, even 3 minutes of this focused time is going to help so much. I know with my beautiful boys, we have a really quick turnaround in the mornings. And it was so busy, I just could not fit it in. But I noticed things were getting harder and harder in terms of getting out the door. So I decided to get up 10 minutes earlier and give them 3 minutes each of special time. And lo and behold, if I did that first thing out of bed, right, special time, what would you like to do? 3 minutes of me playing Lego or watching someone draw or bouncing on the trampoline, then meant that the rest of that process of getting out the door was actually pretty smooth. So it is a real connection vitamin, and you are the special sauce in special time. It's a lovely tool and a great way to build your relationship. Children also need our empathy and listening when times are tough, and hand-in-hand parenting offers a beautiful tool for this called Stay Listening. It's as I've described, when they're upset, we just move in close and we don't do anything. That's really hard for us as parents. We want to fix everything. But again, if you've ever had a time when you felt a bit overwhelmed and a bit sad, and someone has just listened to you without trying to fix anything, without trying to distract you, it's a very powerful gift. And it really allows our children to feel that we're there for them and to feel supported. And it builds such a beautiful sense of safety. That sense of safety is what cooperation and listening skills are built on. So we just keep everyone and everything safe. If they're about to ditch a block at the sibling, we put our hand on that hand and say, I'm here with you. I can't let you do that. I'm here. And we offer our eye contact, we offer our warmth. And then generally at that moment, they'll have a big cry. And if we can just stay with them without trying to distract them, stay and listen, that's really what they need. And it actually builds intelligence in a huge way over time if they get a lot of experience of someone listening to their hard feelings. Another thing that can help, I feel like this is the real linchpin of cooperation and listening, is play. So all mammals play as a way to understand the world, and it really helps our children to feel safe. It's like if mum or dad is playing, things must be really safe, things must be great. So it allows them to also, it's a little bit like a supercharged form of reaching. So instead of lecturing, telling them what to do, we reach into that limbic system and we play. It's a way that they can feel our warm attention, feel our love. So when they're not listening, things like giving instructions in a silly voice. I need you to pick up your socks from the floor. We can, do a bit of operatic singing. We can become a robot. We might be their favourite character from Paw Patrol and say, Chase really needs you to pick up your socks. Shall we have a competition with Chase? So embodying those characters that they love can be a good way to do it. But often what you might find, as I have done, is that if you're able to bring that warmth and that play, they're then able to listen. So I'm thinking of my beautiful boy when he was much younger. He would be going a bit off track. Things would be a bit hard. And when I first learned these ideas, I started to realise that what he needed was a hug. And I would move in close and say, hey, do you need a hug? And he'd say yes. And we'd sit for a minute and have a cuddle. And then he'd be able to cooperate. And in the same way, my other child found it hard to get ready in the mornings. And I would repeat my instructions 43 times. Please put your shoes on. You need to put your shoes on. Come on, put your shoes on. It's time to get out the door. And I finally twigged and thought, and we came up with transmission via hug. So I would move in close, put my arm around him and say, hey, it's transmission via hug time. Time to put your shoes on. You ready for that? And he'd really easily go and do it. So it's like a shortcut to making their brains work if you can bring physical contact in a playful way. So things like 1,000 kisses. Oh, I'm going to give you 1,000 kisses while you head off to put your shoes on. Come on, I'm sure I can catch you. Oh, you're too fast. If they are just being a little bit off track, you might try the girls who do that need 1,000 kisses, or girls who do that need a chase, or girls who do that are going to get hugby tackled. Hugby tackles are big in our house. Racing against the parents is a great way to get them on track too. Oh, I bet you can't beat Daddy to get dressed in the morning. He's way faster than, you did beat Daddy. Oh my goodness, you were too fast. Racing them against each other I've found is a recipe for disaster, but racing them against the parents is a great way to do it. Also, the terrified game really is fun for them. So when they're getting dressed and they're putting their arm through the sleeve, you could say, I hope that scary hand doesn't come out again. Oh, no, it's terrifying. Little ones, particularly 2 and 3 year olds, where it's hard to get them dressed, can really have fun with that game, seeing you be really scared. I think it's a great opportunity for role reversal, where they get to be the more powerful one for a change. And just good old-fashioned pillow fights are a really great way to have some rollicking fun, and then your child is able to think after that. It really sets them up for some cooperation and some listening if you're able to do some wild play with them. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive, and sometimes it may end in tears because they're feeling safe enough, as I said before, to show you that it's been hard. But if you're able to build in pillow fights regularly, that can be a lovely way to help them have a really good cooperative day. I went through one whole day once where every time there was a problem, and there used to be a lot of problems between my beautiful boys, they struggled to get on, I'd say, right, pillow fight. And it made a huge difference. The whole day was more fun, but actually in the days after that, things went much more smoothly. And sock fights are another thing you can try with all of your odd socks. Put them all in a box, and you can have sort of a grand battle where you're trying to fling socks at each other. So these are just some silly ideas to bring in some play and some playful limits. Now, this is all very well and good, of course. I'm sure some of you are thinking, oh my goodness, you're asking me to do more listening, more play, more attention, and I just do not have it in the tank. And I really hear you. It's so hard when we're exhausted, we're overwhelmed, we're isolated, we're busy, and we're facing so many challenges in our culture and society as parents. So I really honour that you will, even if you take one of these ideas and try them, just experiment. That's a great start. But before you do that, I really encourage you to think about what you need. So self-care is talked about a lot. And I don't see it as being a bubble bath is the best self-care. I see it as really kind of nutritious things like good food, like hydration, like enough sleep. So make a list of 10 things that rejuvenate you. You know, a glass of wine is maybe a great thing sometimes, but something that's really kind of nurturing and nourishing. Make that list. I challenge you to do this and stick it on the fridge and try and tick off all 10 of those things in the next week. See if you can fit in time for you. That then will allow you to have more space to offer your child the kinds of things I've been talking about. Another thing to consider is mindfulness. Maggie Dent talks about the parental pause, and another program that we run called Bring Out Great Kids has something called Stop, Pause, Play, where you just practice this in an easy moment with your children when they're happy, but you just stop for a moment, feel your feet on the ground, take a deep breath, and just notice what's happening, and then respond rather than reacting. And if you can practice that in moments that are not so hard, you may then be able to build up to, in a hard moment, stopping, taking a deep breath, pausing and noticing what's going on, and then pressing play again and being able to respond to what's happening rather than reacting. Support is powerfully important for parents. We often are feeling quite isolated. We were never meant to parent alone. The way it's done for us is really not the way we were built. We were built to be in connection in the same way that our children are. So listening partnerships is a tool taught by hand-in-hand parenting that I've found really transformative. And it's an agreement between two parents to meet regularly and trade equal time listening to one another without trying to fix it, without trying to change anything, without trying to give advice, or without interrupting. It's really powerful to have that safe space to talk through challenges and successes. And what I'd encourage you to do, if that sounds interesting, is join one of our longer workshops. So this short one obviously doesn't have the opportunity for you to experiment with that, but our longer 2-hour workshops, or better yet, there's a 3-week workshop coming up soon called Build Your Bond. they're a great way to have a go at listening partnerships and see if it's something you'd like to build into your self-care. And the last one is journaling. Journaling's also been shown through research to be a really powerful way to support parents to figure stuff out, to notice what's going on, and as I said before, to respond rather than reacting. So you can do that in a written format. There's also things like Voxer, where you can keep a voice journal, just talking and just trying to make your way through your experiences day to day and figure out the best way through. You're the expert in your family, and given enough time and resources, you will find the way through for you. So we've got lots of beautiful resources for parents and carers here at Miralinga Parenting Service, and there's lots of others around as well. There are many, many people you can ask for help. So when things are tough, it's easy for us to feel alone, and there are heaps of great organisations and heaps of great humans who really want to support you and who are there to support you. So there's a page of resources, and I will send those out to you, with helplines for crisis moments, for general resources like the Raising Children website that I mentioned earlier, hand-in-hand parenting website, and all sorts of other great options there to help you as you do the important work of parenting. So in summary, we've had a look at why children don't always listen or cooperate. And it comes down to how they're feeling and whether they're feeling connected. And so building in connection is a key way to support your child to listen and cooperate. So connect before you correct, bringing the limit physically, moving in close and warm, reaching for that limbic system so that their brain can come online and they can then think, filling their connection cup, listening to their big feelings with as much love and empathy as you can, and bringing in some play, those simple ways. And we need support too. We are built to be in connection as well. And when we get the support we have, we can show up for our kids in ways that we feel good about. So we can practice self-care, mindfulness, support like listening time, listening partnerships, and reflection is a beautiful way to really react and respond in hard moments in ways that we can feel good about. So I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording. So thanks to everyone who's listening in. I really appreciate you being here, and any queries you've got, please do get in contact. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Belinda.
And